It is June 15th, 2026. As I mentioned in my last video, I want to pivot to focusing on voices, primarily those on YouTube and other social media, that have been regularly documenting and fighting against the fascism of the United States of America. Now, for the first one of these videos, I want to highlight the channel Guard the Leaf. Guard the Leaf is a channel that I've watched for a very long time, both for their coverage of US events and for their coverage of how Canadians were fighting back. Something that is often talked about on the Guard the Leaf channel is how the US media purposefully skews its reporting to be in favor of the USA and also to be in favor of the idea that Donald Trump is just a short, minor issue. I mean, all that's bullshit, right?
This is a lot of the perception of that traveler. What will they experience when they come?
No, lady, it's not perception, it's facts. And it's also moral standards and principles. I'm really starting to get annoyed when they start to use the perception excuse. Because it's basically implying that we're the ones that are blowing it out of proportion and things aren't as bad as we think it is.
Donald Trump is the natural evolution of where the USA has been heading for the last several decades. And I'm glad that Canadians are beginning to act accordingly, and they're acting by not coming to this country, not giving their dollars to US businesses, and causing a lot of US tourism to sink. It's Canadians, it's also very much Europeans and Australians and everyone else who usually would come here and now won't. Because generally, when you're told you're not welcome in a country, you don't go there, right? That makes sense. If you're going to be treated like a prisoner, why would I come to your country if that's how you're going to treat me?
The incident in question took place on May 29th at Toronto Pearson Airport. When I got to the US Border Control agent at Pearson, she was extremely rude, mean, and unprofessional. She asked me why I was going to New York City, and I said just to visit my boyfriend. She repeated the same question again, and I was confused. I just said I was going to visit. Her tone was very aggressive and accusatory. Then she started saying things like, "Do you not have friends?" Now, a question like this would make anybody kind of raise an eyebrow. I mean, why do they need to know if you have friends or not? But the question itself really isn't the issue. It's more of CBP having the ability to ask any ridiculous question they want, and the power tripping that comes with it. Moving on. The CBP agent allegedly also asked the traveler about her hobbies, and whether her boyfriend was sick of the constant visits. Like, what kind of question is that? She said, "Don't play with me. I can take your visa right now."
And Guard the Leaf very much has the same viewpoint and pushes the same viewpoint, advocating for economic boycotts of US-based businesses, of no longer traveling to the USA, and most recently, with the World Cup being hosted in the USA along with Canada and Mexico, advocating for Canadians that were not going, and also just, again, calling out the US media's bullshit. Because if you look at the channels, and I recommend you watch Guard the Leaf's videos, the US media was constantly pushing the idea that the FIFA games were going to go great, everyone was coming, the ticket sales were down, hotel sales were down, but 7 weeks out, they'll buy, 6 weeks out, they'll buy everything, 5 weeks out, they'll come in, all the people will come 3 days before the event, surely everyone's going to come now, and it evidently never happened. The only reason I didn't make this video sooner was because I was spending a lot of my time watching Guard the Leaf videos, watching the US media so desperately try to present this picture that the World Cup was going just fine and attendance was totally great. Meanwhile, the actual seats were not being sold out, and then you got to see, come the games, half-empty stadiums, which is pretty shocking for an event that usually is sold out well in advance. This is probably because, among other things, FIFA has directly aligned itself with a global terrorizing fascist. Also, the tickets were ridiculously expensive, and buying a ticket for a US-based stadium would mean that you have to immigrate to the USA in order to view the game that you just paid thousands of dollars for. And in case you haven't seen the headlines, the USA hates immigrants. The American people hate immigrants. The US law enforcement treats immigrants like non-humans. It is not the time to immigrate to the USA. In fact, I'd argue that there never is going to be a time to immigrate to the USA. I fully believe the boycott of the USA should be eternal, or at least last several decades, because this country needs to get its shit together before they take any more lives of people outside this country, and it's just not safe to be here. It's not safe to live in the USA. It's not safe to visit the USA. It's not safe to buy from the USA. And this is exactly why Guard the Leaf exists. This is why Guard the Leaf has supported these boycotts, both in Canada and in the rest of the non-American world. Because the USA is a fascist nation that you should not support with your money. I also always appreciate the commentary of Guard the Leaf. It's very upfront, dry humor, very much matching my style in recent years. Just putting it all out there and continuing to hammer not just on Donald Trump, but on all the Americans that are continuing to let this atrocity happen. We are seeing the rise of fascism, terrorism on the world stage. We have as much guilt for this as the Germans under Nazi Germany did for their regime's reign over the world. What do you call the Germans living in Germany during World War II? You call them Nazis. What do we call Americans that are living right now in this country? Unless you are doing something tangible to actually stand up to this regime and not just saying, oh, but wait for the midterms. If you're just sitting around waiting for that to happen, watching ICE take away your neighbors, you are a fascist enabler.
102,267 of them voted for the Tangerine Tyrant, which means they voted for this mess that they're in right now, which also means I don't give a shit about them. But you should be mad at the 102,261 that decided to vote for the Tangerine Tyrant. They could be your neighbors, they could be your family, could be your accountant, your hairdresser, or the guy serving your McDonald's or Jack in the Box. The 102,000 are there, and they're not going anywhere.
And right there, Guard the Leaf also nailed something that I've been trying to convey with all these videos. Those people that voted for Trump are still here. The people who voted for Trump are the majority in America. This is something a lot of American voices have been trying to brush aside or ignore. And I've seen it from voices across X, Blue Sky, YouTube. Folks, that election was no mistake. You didn't just roll an unlucky result. This country made the decision, overwhelmingly, to vote for a white rapist, child rapist, con man, over a black woman who herself had a lot of flaws because of how this country has run itself. And if you put up Newsom or you think that even a ticket of AOC and Bernie is going to change the fact that this country is a fascist, racist hellhole, you are wrong. We are not waiting for the midterms. And progressive voices in America, that 75,000 that voted for Kamala Harris, you need to understand that you are the minority. Waiting for the midterms is a failing strategy because you do not have the leverage that you think you have. That's not going anywhere. As Gen Z men shift further and further rightward, the youngest generation, as Gen Alpha is coming to know this as their new norm, as Gen Z men and women are being fed lies that glorify the patriarchy, glorify the oppression that women suffered through in the 1960s and 70s with their vacuum commercial tier trad wife LARPing. And I think a whole lot of voices on the left that think they can just elect a couple Democrats and open their arms wide and the whole world's going to receive them again. Those voices need to understand that the world has woken up to the fact that America is a nation teetering on Christo-fascism every 2 to 4 years.
It reminds me of a comment that I saw that once the Taco Tuesday guy's out of the office, everything will go back to normal. Well, let me ask you this. After Taco Tuesday's gone and the administration is gone, like eventually, where do you think Nutlick's going to be? Probably in the private sector somewhere. And continuing to rip off people. I'll ask the same question again for Stephen Miller, Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel. None of these people turned evil overnight, and all Taco Tuesday did was formed a league of extraordinary drunk and vile idiots. These guys are not going anywhere after Taco Tuesday's term is done. And I haven't even mentioned the government officials who will probably still continue on long after Taco Tuesday is gone. The mask has fully come off, and we know what the United States government and the people are.
Let's say that part again. And the people. Because the American people voted for Trump. And for the last year and a half, it is June 18th, 2026 when I'm saying this, last year and a half, the American people have sat by as Donald Trump and his goons terrorized all of our people, terrorized people who were coming to this country for work, terrorized people who are coming to this country for refuge, and terrorized the people who have been living in this country their entire life. And the people of Canada. and the people of Greenland, and the people of Venezuela, and the people of Iran. The American people let it happen and continue to let it happen. And I imagine come October, come November, whatever month you want to point to, the American people would not have changed. Prove me wrong, by all means. I want to be proven wrong in this, but I doubt I will be.
We have to think about our future as well. Because if a new Democratic president comes along, he's not going to fix the problem. Things are not going to magically go back to the way things were before. But the plan B's, C, D's, E's that we're making right now, in my opinion, those got to be the permanent plans. And anything that the United States wants from us in the future will be secondary to what we arrange with Europe.
I don't care if there's 4 Democrat presidents in a row, 5 Democrat presidents in a row. This country will never be one that I feel comfortable in, that I am supportive of, that I care for. I hope Canada's boycott goes indefinitely. I hope more people take the position of guard the leaf. They will say, fuck you to this country. Fuck you to Gavin Newsom. Fuck you to Donald Trump. Fuck you to, well, not Charlie Kirk anymore. He's gone a different way. But he was definitely going to be our future president. Fuck you to Hakeem Jeffries. Fuck you to Chuck Schumer. Fuck you to the DNC. Fuck you to the RNC. I hope more Canadians take that position. I hope more Canadians and Europeans and Australians guard their own nations against the USA. And above all, it's not Canada's job to dig the USA out of the mess that it continues to put itself in. Look, folks, if we wanted to say that Trump was a mistake, and I'm saying this to people across both sides of the aisle, if you wanted to make the argument that Donald Trump was a mistake, you had your chance to do that in prosecuting him from 2020 to 2024 and not reelecting him in 2024. America deserves everything that it gets. Collectively, right? Collectively. Not every person in America is a terrible person. Bigger picture is the USA has full guilt for what is going on in this country, and Canada collectively does not. They did not vote for this. Even if 15% of Canadians are Maple MAGA, let's look at the USA where over 50%, I'd say closer to 2/3, are MAGA, burger MAGA, hamburger MAGA. We Americans, we are the people who live here. We are the people who staff ICE. We are the people who supply ICE. We are the people who build Alligator Auschwitz in Florida. We are the people who allow the detention centers to come up in our land. So many liberals have taken on the position of half-heartedly joking that someone else should come in and kill our president. What the fuck have you been doing for the last year and a half? I get angry now. See, Guard the Leaf, I like most when Guard the Leaf berates America. I want to join in on that. And I will, even though I live here. Because I understand I have guilt. I'm going to put that guilt to the side halfway. I'm going to half yell at myself right now and half yell at every other American citizen. What the fuck have you been doing for the last year and a half? We let it happen. We bear the guilt. So I do hope every business fails. And I don't care whether it's owned by someone who voted blue or voted red or green or yellow. I do not care who you voted for anymore. That ship sailed in January 2025. That is where the who you voted for part doesn't matter anymore. Now the question is, what will you Americans do about the terrorists occupying your country? And as we have seen, the majority of the country, not 66%, not 50% plus 1, 80% are perfectly content to sit back and do nothing. Now, that might be a bit of a generalization. It might be 95%. But the fact is, I don't see people marching on the Capitol. Except when I do. And Cole Thomas Allen, great guy. Tyler Robinson, great guy. But the majority of this country has done jack shit. And that is something that we bear a responsibility for. And we should carry the guilt of. The fact that we let our neighbors be abducted. This isn't polling anymore. This is Holocaust. This is what you learned about the Holocaust. No one said the Nazis should be sitting around and letting Hitler do his thing because he has a legal right to do it. America has chosen to let Donald Trump back in office and then sit by while he terrorizes the world. Because what happens in the USA, right? Internally, as individuals, we bear guilt for what happens within our borders. As a nation, America bears guilt for what happens outside of its borders. So when you hear about people getting bombed in Iran, when you hear about an elementary school getting bombed, and then the US military coming back 40 minutes later to bomb the rescue teams and bomb whatever survivors are being escorted out, that's the kind of shit you are responsible for, and you bear that guilt. I'm not going to play this whole therapy speak, you're doing your best, we all only can control so much, be the Buddha. I'm not going to play that shit when you have children getting bombed. Not to mention the USA, your country is run by internationally sex trafficking pedophiles. I don't support international sex trafficking. I don't support pedophilia. I don't support mutilating children. I don't support killing babies. So I do not want to support the USA. That is what every immigrant to this country, temporary or permanently, should be considering. Now, I'm not going to blame the people who come from war-torn areas who are coming up here as refugees. I am going to blame the people in this country who complain that Canadians, Australians, Europeans are not coming to our country, while we also proceed to terrorize them at the border, while we also are terrorists on the world stage. And yes, you do actually have more power than you've given yourself. Too many Americans have dug their heels in the ground on this whole, protect my peace bullshit. We don't do that here on the Kelvar channel, hence why I've gone exclusively posting politics for the last year and a half. You're not gonna get to bury your head in the sand and pretend like this isn't going on. The reality is, you have a lot more you could do, Americans. They can sit back and complain about how the Canadians and Australians and Europeans need to come in with their militaries. Why don't you go get your ass off the couch and go fight the fascists in your country? Why don't you stand up? Instead of complaining that Canada and Europe and Australia are not sending in their militaries to save us from the nation that will nuke the fuck out of them, probably. If the Canadian army started marching on US cities, come on, folks. We all know the USA would be nuking the fuck out of Canada, Europe, Australia. And the Canadians know that too. They don't want war with us. Every person in the USA, their tax dollars are going to fund ICE, to fund concentration camps, to fund Alligator Auschwitz, to fund the bombs that are blowing up Palestine, blowing up Lebanon, blowing up Iran, terrorizing the people of Venezuela. And there's no excuse for that. There's no exception. America is complicit in genocide and terrorism on the global stage. America is the nexus of fascism in this current world. If you support the USA, you are supporting fascism. Everything in America plays into that fascist system. If you're going to come to America, you're giving a vote of support for all of America, not just who the president is. And I'm glad to see a lot of Canadians are taking the initiative to withdraw that support, to reconsider why they give that support. And so I am very grateful for all of those Canadians that are withholding their money. Thank you, GTL. Thank you, Guard the Leaf. And thank you to the GTL community.